Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. We're going to dive into all the running backs that move teams, that have new experiences now heading into the new year in the NFL. Starting off with the first move that I saw today coming from the Chicago Bears. They agreed with running back DeAndre Swift to a 3-year, $24 million deal. He was, like I mentioned, the first running back off the market. And instantly he becomes their running back number one. He joins a pretty talented offense in DJ Moore. Now with him as the running back one, they have Cole Kmet, maybe Darnell Mooney if he sticks around. I know they have the quarterback to still figure out, but if it's Caleb Williams or Justin Fields, I still think a young, talented group like that, it's very exciting, but projections are one thing and reality, production is another thing. But, Swift signs there. Gets a decent deal for the market. He's around $8 million per year, which is what you'd expect for a running back of his caliber. And I think the Bears are happy to get a deal like this done. With Swift still at a relatively young age, it was a good deal for the Bears to move on and improve on that running back position heading into next year. The deal that followed that was Tony Pollard moving from the NFC over to the AFC and signing with the Tennessee Titans. The exact same deal as DeAndre Swift, a 3-year, $24 million deal. And this all but closes the door on Derrick Henry returning to the Tennessee Titans, if anybody still had any hope of that. I never really thought he would come back, but I know there are some fans that were holding out and thinking that Derrick Henry and the Titans could work out a deal if he got more money or something like that. But Derrick Henry, it was reported that his sensations were elsewhere. And now with the signing of Tony Pollard, they're going to start something new there with Will Levis, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Hopkins still there. They still have to figure out a wide receiver number 2. But again, I like the fit there for Pollard with the sort of money he got, $8 million per year, around the value that was rumored for these running backs. He's not going to be make or break really for the Titans, but I like the fit there to fit in with this new uprising, hopefully for the Titans, sort of offense. Then later on, just today, you saw Josh Jacobs sign with the Green Bay Packers. And when I wrote the notes, the details weren't disclosed, but I'm almost certain that I saw later. I didn't write it down, but just before I got on the show, the details came out and it was a 4-year, $48 million contract. I'm about 70% that that's right. And if it is right, he gets a lot of money than I think a lot of people were expecting, because Josh Jacobs didn't have the best of years last year in terms of production and how he performed for the Las Vegas Raiders. He was injured a good amount. So getting $12 million a year puts him in the top 5 or tied for the top 5 in terms of annual salary. He gets a good amount of money there for him. The Packers get a good running back to now replace Aaron Jones, because shortly thereafter they informed Aaron Jones that he was going to be released. The two sides couldn't agree on a restructuring of his deal. He was on the last year of his contract, and he was supposed to take a $17.5 million cap hit. And the Packers wanted that to get reduced, change it a little bit with Aaron Jones, but neither side was budging. And with the signing now of Josh Jacobs, they in turn released Aaron Jones, and now he gets added to the market and is probably the best running back left other than Derrick Henry. I expect him to have a big market. The Texans, the Cowboys all to be favored in those conversations. The Ravens as well, with uncertainty around their running back position. So those three are the biggest bidders in my opinion, but who knows where he'll end up. A lot of those teams have money, so he could get a lot more money, maybe not restructure his deal. We'll see where he ends up. But Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay Packers. Again, another running back joining a new team. It's a good fit in my opinion, but for the money and things like that, I still have questions, because Aaron Jones, I think, got hurt less than Josh Jacobs, and he was already there, familiar with everybody, so I'm not too sure of how successful they'll be early on. But Josh Jacobs, I still like him as a player. He just has to answer those injury questions for the Packers. And if they can do it, their offense is already pretty exciting with Jordan Love and all the young talent that they have. So it could have high rewards, but equally of a high risk for the Green Bay Packers. Before I get into the biggest one, Antonio Gibson signed a 3-year deal with the Patriots. Can't let him out. And before I mentioned Gus Edwards, just before I came on here, signed a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. But getting those two out of the way, recognizing them for their deals, all power to them. The biggest one, Saquon Barkley signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 years, $37.75 million, $26 million guaranteed, and he becomes the third highest paid running back on an average per year salary at $12.5 million, around the same that Derrick Henry makes and Alvin Kamara makes. And it's nuts when I saw this deal, because I was 100% convinced that he was going to go to the Texans. Get away from the NFC. You're not going to really play the Giants. It seemed like there was a lot of, love there, I guess, with Saquon, and having respect for the Giants to not have to play them. But forget all that. Forget all that. He signs directly with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I couldn't believe it when it dropped. The Eagles obviously had to now find a replacement for DeAndre Swift, an adamant one to stay relevant in a very competitive division. And they snatch away one of their top, or one of their more direct rivals, his best player, and bring him onto their team. And now their offense is absolutely loaded. If you thought the tush push was unstoppable before, it got doubled that with Saquon Barkley being there, with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Their O-line seeming to be still good, even with the retirement of Jason Kelce. And I don't know, it took him by surprise as well, because you think back to a few years ago, Daniel Jones gets that long-term deal, or maybe it might have been just last year. I think it was just last year. He got that long extension, and a lot of questions were made about Danny Dimes getting that extension or Saquon Barkley getting that money. To me, personally, I think there really isn't a question there. There isn't a debate. Saquon Barkley has been there, put in the work with this team, been there since they were very good. Now they're on their low point of their trajectory. They're pretty bad, just in layman's terms, and he's always been there. He's rode it out with this team. They've stuck out with him because of his injury history. They still had confidence in him. And I just thought you repay the guy that's always been there, has given you everything that he's got, but instead you pay your quarterback, and I know the quarterback is probably the most important position in football, but you're talking about Daniel Jones, who, no disrespect to Daniel Jones, he is a solid quarterback. Athletically, he's very good. He's big, he's fast, he could do a lot with it. Brian Daboll, I think, showed us his full potential in his first year with the team, Brian Daboll that being. But, I think it was no question, because Saquon was described as a generational talent coming out of the draft, out of Penn State. You drafted him number 3 overall, if I'm not wrong. And Daniel Jones picked at number 6. A lot of people didn't understand why he was picked at number 6. So, that sort of conundrum that came out of that situation, deciding to sign Daniel Jones to that money, not Saquon, franchise tagging Saquon, and now, I think for Saquon, it hasn't been reported or anything, but you could speculate that, personally, in terms of getting back at this team, the ultimate revenge, get back, whatever you want to call it, is signing with the Eagles and just tormenting them for the rest of your playing career. Which will inevitably probably happen now, with the Giants not only losing out Saquon Barkley, but their defense got worse. Xavier McKinney signed with the Green Bay Packers, so they lost their 2 biggest players, more impactful, consistent players, in just the first day of free agency. And I alluded to that, I think just a few days ago. I think it was Thursday or Friday, where I talked about the biggest questions after the tag deadline. You couldn't explain to me why the Giants didn't tag Xavier McKinney because of his talent, the safety market that was very good out there. Darnell Savage got signed. Justin Simmons is still out there, but Xavier McKinney was young, consistent, good, and he got signed on the first day. And now the Giants, instead of only losing one of their best players, lose both of them. And not only does Saquon leave, he goes to the Eagles. And every time they play now, will most likely remind them of why they shouldn't have let him go, why they should have paid him. And going on to the Eagles now a little bit more, they make their offense a lot better. And just the thought that I had in terms of the Eagles now with Saquon and their offense seemingly to be impossible to stop, almost a juggernaut offense. I don't want to say it puts more pressure on Jalen Hurts, but it's just a thought out there, If things don't pan out as they should, they still struggle in terms of red zone production, just offense as a whole. I think a lot of eyes are going to be drawn nowhere near Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. A lot of the criticism will fall on Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts to some extent as well, because head coach, quarterback, the responsibilities that come with that. But because Jalen Hurts is coming off a really great year, then he made the Super Bowl, then dipping a little bit because of all the coordinators that were switching in and out around the organization. That's fine. You can get a pass for that. But now you're into this new year. Kellen Mond is your new offensive coordinator. He had success with the Dallas Cowboys inside the division. He knows what Saquon's all about. I'm sure he's going to use him to the best of his abilities. And, no one's going to look at the other guys. A lot of people are going to look at Jalen Hurts because there's no coordinator switching ups. He's got an even better offense now. And if it still looks shaky, it could turn out very harsh on Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying it will or I expect it to, but that's just an idea that I thought of when I saw this. If things don't pan out well, where will the excuses fall? Where will the blame fall? And I think unfairly, you could say, it will fall to Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni, and they might have to take the heat and have to respond if the offense in this team isn't pushing for NFC conference contention now with the sort of offense that they have. I know their defense was really lacking towards the end of last year, and they still have questions around it, but it's not very bad where they can't still compete. They also signed Bryce Huff, a pass rusher from the New York Jets, to a 3-year deal, which will inevitably mean that either Montez Sweat or Hassan Reddick Josh Sweat will be traded. Either him or Hassan Reddick will be traded just because of cap money hits, but they still need a linebacker, safety, potentially corner. I think they'll figure it out, but offensively, they're going to put up points now, is my estimation, and the defensive deficiencies won't be as magnified, but saying that if your offense has a rough day, it's going to look worse, and it could be very bad for Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni. But in this moment, stealing Saquon Barkley away from the Giants, absolute boss move from Howie Roseman and the Eagles. I love it. I think it was crazy, just cold-blooded move by Saquon and the Eagles to steal him away. I feel bad for the Giants in some aspect, but, that's business in the NFL. There's really no love lost or really any just emotions left on after these negotiations happen, and it's crazy. First day of NFL free agency. To wrap it up with this news, I'm sure there's going to be more news just the rest of this day, but that's all the running back free agent news I have, and that's all the time I'm going to have for you guys on this episode. Again, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who tuned into the show, everyone who listened while the show was going on or afterwards as well. I want to remind you guys to, again, follow us on all these social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for more content, not just around sports, but content all over the podcast network. If you want to see more of me and more of this content on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, you can go on to the Sports Network channel or the GSMC Podcast Network channel and see all the past live shows that are on there recorded, or YouTube shorts that I produce every day, as well as individual segment videos if you missed a segment video or you want to tune in to a specific one that you saw that day. As always, I've been your host, Manny Maradiege, reminding you that this show is live every day at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me on those days for more NFL and football conversations. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.